Shabbat Shalom. We'll begin with our Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We'll begin with our prayer of gathering Hine Matov on page 10 in Mishkan Tefillah. You can find that in the flip book as well on the betham.org/streaming site.
Welcome back, Ken. Nice to see you.
Shabbat Shalom. It is so nice to be with you. Welcome. We have reached another Friday night. As the sun sets a little earlier this week than it did last week, and we know even earlier next week than this week. It's so nice to be with you as we welcome Shabbat together. I'm joined, of course, by my colleagues, Rabbi Jeremy Morrison, Cantor Jamie Spall, and our wonderful drummer and accompanist, Ken Mowry. It's so good to have you back, Ken. Welcome back. So glad that you're here to lift up our prayer tonight. This week we read Parshat Noach, the story of Noah's Ark. And it's said, if you look carefully at the description of the building of the Ark, that the Ark only had one window. And so I just imagine how bright the light must have seemed the moment that everyone stepped off the ark. Just think about that. After 40 days and 40 nights and such a long time of clouds and rain and flooding, just think about how bright that first glimmer of light stepping outside into the sunshine must have been. And I think on some level in our tradition, Shabbat is sort of like that bright light at the end of each week, something to look forward to at the end of each week. And so as we enter into Shabbat this evening, we'll sing about the brightness of our lights. We'll bring in the light, this beautiful song, before we light our Shabbat candles in just a moment.
Bring in the light, bring in the light. Light of Shabbat, we light the lights of Shabbat. Bring in the light, bring in the light, bring in the light of Shabbat. Lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
As we continue with candle lighting on page 2, I'll invite the families of our B'nai Mitzvah, the Nachman, Schwartz, and Edelberg families to lead us in candle lighting as we kindle our Shabbat lights on page 2.
Okay, go ahead, light the candles. Go ahead, you could light your candles. All right, 1 second. Go ahead, Haley's grandparents, nice to see you. Almost there. Okay, here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav u'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat.
And I'll call our B'nai Mitzvah, tomorrow morning's B'nai Mitzvah, to lead us in Kiddush, our blessing over our wine on page 5, Charlie Schwartz and Haley Adelberg.
Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei pori hagafim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon yinilanu zikaron lama'aseh v'reshit.
Ashtach mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodeshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
L'chaim, continue our service as we welcome Shabbat as if it were a beloved bride. The words of Lecha Dodi on page 20. Rise on verse 9.
Shalom, Ateret Bala, Gam B'Simcha, U'V'Tzola, V'Toch Emunei, Am Segula.
Continue with our call to worship, Baruch Hu, on page 28. If you're able, please rise. Chant from Ariv Aravim, roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
Oh Ma'avir yom u'mevi laila, u'mavdil ben yom u'ben laila. Adonai tzevaot shemo, El Chai v'kayam. Tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv v'aravi.
Amen. Continue at the top of page 33. We read together. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Turn the page for words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Shem kevod malchuto leolam vaed.
If you were standing, you can be seated. Continue with Ve'ahavta on page 36, and it's my pleasure to invite next week's Bar Mitzvah, Harry Michelson, to lead us in Ve'ahavta tonight.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ביתך ופלטך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשייתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתיהם מארץ מצרים, להיות להם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אדוני אלוהיהם אמת.
I imagine that ark must have been a pretty cramped space with all those animals and family and lack of space. So many animals. I imagine also that perhaps some of us might be feeling a little bit cramped, a little constrained in our homes these days without the freedom of movement. As we turn to words of Mi Chamocha, our song of freedom, just imagine that feeling of freedom of space, to wander and roam and go as far as your eyes can see. Mi Chamocha is on page 40.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Menorah tehilot, oseh Le'eli anu le'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai.
Adonai et Yaakov, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
On page 43 and 42, I invite you to sing along with our Zimriyah as they remind us to look for love and understanding.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We continue with our song for Shabbat, Veshamru, page 44.
Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, In an envelope marked personal, God addressed me a letter. In an envelope marked personal, I have given my answer. Tefillah begins on page 46. Please rise if you are able. We continue privately through page 63. Song of Peace, page 60, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha livarech et amecha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך.
as much as the story of Noah is a story of destruction, it is also a story of recreation and of recommitment. And in these moments, we too take part in a moment of recommitment as we, through this prayer, our Misha Berach, we recommit ourselves to the pursuit of healing, and we express our caring for those in our community and beyond who are in need of healing on this Shabbat. And on this evening, we offer these words of healing for Sandy Copeland, Bruce Douglas, Mason Easley, Beth Klein, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, and also for Mark Schifrin. Join with us in the singing of Misha Berach on page 253.
Like many of you, during the last 6 or 7 months, I've taken up a bit of baking. I've dabbled with bagels and banana bread and cakes and cookies, but the thing that I've come back to most consistently every week, or almost every week, is challah for Shabbat. I don't always make one every week, but I certainly try to carve out the time if I'm able. This week, I attempted to make a rainbow challah for Shabbat in honor of the story of Noah and the flood in this week's Torah portion, Noach. At the end of the story of the flood, the Torah tells us that a rainbow in the sky becomes the symbol of God's covenant with Noah and really all of humanity, promising that there will never again be another all-encompassing flood. My rainbow challah certainly wasn't on the order of a major construction project, but in this week's Torah portion, we read of 2 significant building projects, one that went according to plan, and another that did not. The Parsha begins with the first construction project. We read that God calls out to Noah, warning him that a flood will wipe out all flesh, and it's coming soon. And God gives Noah detailed instructions on how to proceed. We read that God says to Noah, "I have decided to put an end to all flesh, for the earth is filled with lawlessness because of them. I'm about to destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, Make it an ark with compartments and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make an opening for daylight in the ark, and terminate it with a cubit of the top. Put the entrance to the ark in its side. Make it with bottom, second, and third decks. Indeed, commentators have noted that the only other building project with such detailed divine instructions is the construction of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the mobile sanctuary that the Israelites build during their wandering from Egypt to the Promised Land. Noah complies with these detailed instructions, surely under the curious and perhaps contemptuous gaze of his neighbors. And when the waters start rising, Noah brings his family and all of the animals in twosies onto his ark. The ark floats along the tempestuous and decimating floodwaters for 40 days and 40 nights, and eventually Noah's ark lands him and his sacred cargo safely upon dry land. For his successful completion of this divinely ordained construction project, Noah is seen by our tradition as a hero, and the ark becomes a symbol of safety and salvation for humanity as the flood clears the way for a better new world. The second, somewhat more elusive and problematic building project of this parsha is the construction of the Tower of Babel. It's an odd story that ends with the scattering of humanity across the earth and God instituting many languages so that humanity would not be able to understand each other any longer. I say it's an odd story because it seems to be somewhat of an alternative narrative explaining this spreading out of humanity, alternative to what was offered just a few verses before in the conclusion of the Noah story and the story of Noah and his descendants who formed nations that, according to the Torah, branched out on the earth after the flood. According to biblical scholar Robert Alter, the story of the Tower of Babel seems to be a cautionary tale that transforms the ancient Near Eastern practice of building massive altars to the gods, like the Mesopotamian ziggurat, a tower-like structure built of bricks, into our own monotheistic fable. The story goes like this. Everyone on earth had the same language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them hard." Brick served them as stone, and bitumen served them as mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build a city and a tower with its top in the sky to make a name for ourselves, else we shall be scattered all over the world." The Eternal came down to look at the city and tower that humans had built and said, "If as one people with one language for all, this is how they have begun to act, then nothing that they may propose to do will be out of their reach. Let us then go down and confound their speech there, so that they shall not understand one another's speech." Thus the Eternal scattered them from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Eternal confounded the speech of the whole earth, and from there the Eternal scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Rabbi Aaron Pankin of blessed memory asks an important question. Why is it that the first building project, Noah's building project, meets with adulation and the ultimate saving of collective humanity, while the second with the dispersion and enforced diversity of language to separate human beings from one another? He goes on to argue that Noah's project is lauded first and foremost because he follows God's command, working carefully and with determination to complete his project. But Rabbi Pankin also points to another more subtle reason for admiring Noah. He also shows tremendous courage. Rabbi Pankin explains Noah's project was not a group effort, and he faced, no doubt, some skepticism from his neighbors. You try building an ark in your backyard one day, and you'll see. Further, the ones saved by his project were those in his immediate family, and this was a divine choice based on his and presumably his family's righteousness. Finally, his task was to save humanity and its animal companions from the constant challenge of flooding lowlands. In sharp contrast to Noah's courage and devotion to God is the story of the Tower of Babel, a group of power-hungry individuals who wanted to try to exalt themselves and seize the power of God. Rabbi Pinkin explains that such focus on status, hierarchy, and control leads only to no good. By engaging in such self-aggrandizing activity, rather than promoting the saving of humanity, the tower builders set up its downfall. Not only were they trying to seize power for themselves, but Pinkin's reading suggests that their actions diminished the power of God in the people's eyes, and that the focus on this unnecessary and unwarranted building project was carried out at the expense of caring for the needs of those in their community. Robert Alters suggests that another flaw of the builders of Babel was the overconfidence of humanity in the feats of their technology. One of the core messages of the story of the Tower of Babel seems to suggest that as humans, we must recognize our limitations. Only God is all-powerful, and as human beings, we start running into trouble when we think of ourselves as having limitless, godlike power. Now, my challah this week may not be perfect. It turned out, by the way, okay, more of a tie-dye challah than 6 solid strands of each color of the rainbow, which I was going for, but it's still going to taste delicious, and I'm looking forward to challah French toast tomorrow morning. But I wasn't going for perfection. After all, just something nice and hopefully tasty to share with my family. In the end, our Torah portion this week presents us with an important human choice we face each day. When we build, are we aiming for an ark, a vessel made for saving others, or for a tower, a monument that celebrates ourselves? Shabbat Shalom.
And although Rabbi Wademaker's challah might not be perfect, I'm sure it will be tasty. We turn now to a prayer that speaks to perfection and to a world perfected. The Aleinu, page 282. Please rise if you are able.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
For the people
may be seated. We turn now to Kaddish, our prayer of memory, which is on page 294. And this setting is by Howard Schwartz. It's entitled Our Angels. Our angels spend much of their time sleeping. In their dreams, they tear down the new houses by the sea and build old ones in their place. No matter how long they may sleep, 100, 200 years, 10 centuries is not too much. The first to wake up takes the torch that has been handed down, adds a drop of oil to the lamp, blesses the eternal light, and then recalls the name of every other angel. And one by one, as they are remembered, they wake up. For them, as for us, there is nothing more beautiful than memory. And we remember at this time those of our congregation and of its families who have died during the past week. J. Young Wang, father of Susie Wang, grandfather of Emma, Molly, and Violet Glickman. Betty Carr, mother of Liz Carr, grandmother of Cy, Jacob, and Aaron Gittin. We add to their names the names of those who died during the past month and whose families observe Shaloshim, the traditional 30-day period of mourning. Rosalie Lewis, Gladys Stark, Mae Briskin, Marion Katz, Stanley Goldbaum, Seymour Freed, Fannie Taylor. And we add to their names the names of those whose yahrzeits are commemorated this week. Lowell Buzz Arola, Leon Alexander, Isidore Allen, Susan Angel, Ronnie Axelrod, Violet Barker, Rosetta Berman, Shirley Bugan, Stephen Block, Jenny Bobrov, Carol Citron, Lena Cohen, Nancy Sarah Cottrell, Bessie Deutsch, Lillian Dorfman, Ellen Doyle, Barbara Ector, Abe Fishman, Pearl Frankel, Joseph Friedman, Dorothy Friendly, Jacques Ghani, George Gibson, Elizabeth Gauntz, Azrin Gottlieb, Ruth Greenberg, Ben Gruber, Irving Half, Bernadine Harris, Jeanette Hecht, Gloria Hirschman, Diane Holtzberg, Rudolph Hope, Leona Hordener, Sarah Israel, Steffi Katz, Philip Kay, Ann Kleinberg, Gitta Korda, Ed Krass, Leon Lack, Fanny Levin, Enta Levinson, Carol Kretzer-Levy, Henry Lindy Lindauer, Helen Lips, James Lobel, Gregory Maybeal, Oleg Macheret, Matthew Margulis, Grace Marks, Helen Marquit, Joanna Morgan, Helena Moser, Moshe Nissim, Gregory Novick, Joseph Popik, Marjorie Price, Augusta Rauschwerger, Eleanor Richmond, E. Lewis Rosen, Rebecca Rosenberg, Henry Rosdell, Anna Rabinchik, Hannah Schur, Helen Schwartz, Ruben Schwartz, Morris Selkovitz, Lillian Scher, Edward Sinclair, Paloma B. Scanberg, Ms. Lillian Spoler, Jeanette Stern, Yefim Vaitzer, Magda Wiesel. And we turn now to Kaddish, page 294. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bi'alma divarach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. V'agala v'izman kariv yimeru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudashah berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran v'yalma v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei shalama Rabbah min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Before we conclude our service, I want to remind you that this month for Tzedakah, we are collecting for Hope's Corner, a Mountain View nonprofit that provides meals, showers, and shelter to area residents. So I hope you'll give and give generously, and you can do so through our website. I also want to remind you, if you didn't notice in our weekly email, that there's an opportunity if you would like to borrow one. You can borrow one of our Sidurim during this time of COVID. They aren't doing us much good just sitting here in our synagogue, so we really hope you'll take advantage of this opportunity if you'd like to borrow a Sidur. There's a simple form you'll need to fill out. The links to it are in the Thursday email that we send out. We're going to want them back, but most of all, we want them used. So, and of course, we all can't wait to the day then we might have to chase you down to get the Sidurim back, because that'll mean we'll be back together. So please avail yourself of this opportunity. And so now we conclude with Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od Yavo And if Rabbi Wademaker's family is at home watching, you need to pick up that rainbow challah right this minute and join with us, and everyone else join with us in this blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom, b'tei avon. Take good care. Have a wonderful Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom.